Assemblywoman Michaelle Solages of the Assembly District 22, Assembly member of my respective district. And I just wanted to interview you. I'm taking this class called Sports, Race, and Politics, which is essentially about kind of like the intersection between sports, race, and politics. And from what I remember, you have a background in sports. I think it was sports medicine, maybe?
Yes, well, I thank you for this opportunity. It's always nice to converse with a constituent. And that's a very interesting class that you're taking. And I once dabbled in sports medicine. I studied to be an athletic trainer. So it's a healthcare profession that, you know, sometimes when you're watching football, you see this person run on the field and take care of the athletes when they fall. That's the profession that I studied in undergrad at Hofstra University.
Okay, cool. And so I thought you'd be perfect for this this interview. And so I guess the first question is, could you talk a little bit about what you think sports means to this community? Community meaning Belmont, Valley Stream, your respective district, or just Long Island in general, or Nassau County?
Well, sports is very vital, I think, to society. If you look at the ancient Greeks all the way to now, sports has always been a part of a community. And it's a great way for our young people to get exercise and to show their talent. And it's something like that relaxes you. I know that I've watched many of a football game, soccer game, and I do it in my leisure time, the little that I have. But it's always, sports is something that is intertwined in our society, and it's something that I don't think is ever going to go away.
Second question. With the Islanders winning the bid for the stadium, or the lot for the Belmont redevelopment, what did you find to be the most common critiques? Did you feel like people lean towards having the stadium and or not having the stadium?
So the Belmont Park Redevelopment has been a conversation this community has had for over 20 years. And I think everyone in this community wants to see a redevelopment of that area. Currently, there is horse racing that happens there, and there's a large stadium that is underutilized. For only 56 days out of the year is there horse racing, and then that property is kind of, just not used. And so people want more from that property. It's 400 acres of economic opportunity. And so when we have a conversation about this redevelopment, there was a community conversation about a stadium, and the community said loud and clear that they didn't want it. They did not want a stadium. They felt that a stadium was an economic development. They felt that the stadium wouldn't energize the local community, and that the money would basically go to the developers and the stadium owners, and not to high quality jobs. You walk around, people want sustainable jobs here on Long Island. They want to make sure that their kids can live here and they can have access to good jobs. And, the community said that the stadium wouldn't provide that. And so, unfortunately, 2 years ago, there was another RFP, and the Islanders, New York Arena Partners, won that bid. And now there's another conversation with the community as to whether do we want a stadium. The New York Arena Partners has mentioned that they're not only going to do a stadium, but a retail village, a hotel, other amenities, which is things that we wanted. We always wanted those amenities. However, that stadium, is it really going to bring good paying jobs to your area? Is there going to be a reduction in traffic? Are they going to redo that train station? There's so many questions, and us as a minority community, we have to have that conversation as whether to see is that appropriate economic development. You go all the way on Long Island, and they have high-paying jobs with biotech, with technology, and our community was just offered a stadium, and so we feel kind of cheated.
Okay, I just have a quick question. This is actually not on script, but do you know? Is there a reason why they didn't just continue playing at the Coliseum, or because I know they redeveloped it? But...
So the Nassau Coliseum, which is a property about 8 miles from here, was that's the original home of the Islanders, and they played there for decades. And they tried to redevelop that area. Unfortunately, the Republican town of Hempstead didn't want to see the beautiful redevelopment project. It was called the Lighthouse.
Oh, okay.
So it had housing, hotels, office space, retail village. It was actually something that was forward thinking, and this was during the Swazi administration. And so unfortunately, Town of Hempstead said no, and that is a Town of Hempstead property. It's owned by the Town of Hempstead. And so Charles Wang, who was the original developer and owner of that Nassau Coliseum, kind of had to scrap the project. Lo and behold, 2 years later, Mangano wanted to use private dollars to build a lesser sort of lackluster lighthouse project. And a referendum came about where the people of Nassau County had an option to vote whether they wanted to spend public dollars to redevelop Nassau Coliseum. And it was loud and clear. They said, no, we don't want to use public dollars. And finally, so Charles Wang said that, and when I say he said, he didn't actually say it to me, but he made a statement by just saying, okay, well, I'm moving the team to Barclays. And that's what he did. He moved it to Barclays in Brooklyn. Okay. And that's where they were playing for the past couple of years.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so.
And
that's why we're in this whole mess.
Yeah.
If we just approved the Lighthouse project,
then it probably would have been. Okay.
The Islanders would have stayed at Nassau Coliseum, and we would have had such beautiful development at Nassau Coliseum. And right now, all you see is just a stadium with surface parking.
Yeah, I was gonna say because when you drive by there, there's like so much space, and it's like huge empty lot, just a stadium in the middle. So yeah. Next question, I guess. And so you spoke earlier about Brooklyn, Barclays Center. Yeah. Do you know of
the community went through a lot when it came to that redevelopment. It took about 8 to 10 years. Don't quote me on the number, but it took a very long time for that process to go through. Okay. There was a community coalition and elected officials who were against it, and it finally came about an agreement that benefited the community, benefited the tax base, and allowed them to build that center. Okay. But that area, people say, oh, the stadium boomed that area. That's not true at all. It's Brooklyn. Yeah. Brooklyn was booming long before. And even if the stadium didn't pop up, that area would have been booming as well.
I remember going there with my dad as a child to go to sneaker stores and stuff like that. And the area was always filled with people, different types of people now maybe. Yeah, yes. Which I think actually goes to the next question. So we talk a lot about gentrification in the class that I'm taking. You being older than I am, I never
not by much. Right?
Not by much. I never really got to experience an Elmont other than what it is. So do you know a little bit about the history of because I know Elmont wasn't always a majority black town, but you speak a little.
That was before my time as well.
Oh, okay.
I can only attest to what my father would tell me. And when my parents moved here about 30 years ago, they said that it was they were the only African Americans on the block, and that it was a very Caucasian area. It was primarily Irish and Italian, and as time went on, it actually diversified. And it's not only Elmont is not only African Americans. It's West Indians. Yeah. Now the Muslim community is moving in. It's so diverse. It's so beautiful. It's when you go to the schools, you see the diversity. It's amazing. And I think Elmont High School has about 200 language spoken. So it's very diverse. Elmont. There's still a Caucasian population over by Meacham Avenue. So when we talk about community and diversity, Elmont, I really think is one of those shining lights. Okay. Yeah.
So if you remember on the night of the Belmont, the most recent redevelopment hearing, I remember there was, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, Kaoli. I think she was maybe 21 years old, and she was talking about Islanders fans, and she was explaining why she didn't think that developing that specific space for the hockey arena would be beneficial. Did you ever get, I don't know, maybe overwhelming or racist vibes from the Islanders fans at all, or?
Oh, online, I do see conversations of Islanders fans on Twitter and sometimes on Facebook that has a racist undertone, and hopefully that is not Islanders fans. I just attest that to online bullying and trolling, and hopefully it's all that. I can't attest to direct racism from Islanders fans. Only what's online, and I hope that's not how
that's not representative of the entire population.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but it's there, and I don't like it, and I've mentioned that, and even the local papers have agreed that they're hoping that doesn't represent the Islanders fans. And I know Islanders fans. I have people who I know are Islanders fans, and they're very level-headed people, and they're not racist at all. I think it's just the fact that, when you're online, sometimes it's easier to be a bully or a troll.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. Yeah, I think that's it. But if I could just ask you like a follow-up question, do you think that this stadium is, well, you might, I'm not sure.
Oh no, actually, go ahead.
So the plan has been approved, so it definitely will be built. And
so the plan, so how the process goes, there's a request for a proposal, and so developers have to submit their kind of dream plan to redevelopment, and then they have to fulfill a financial obligation. They have to prove that they have enough money that they could build this. After that, they have to go through engineering, environmental, traffic test, and it's the technical term is called a CEQA.
Okay.
And what they do is they look for all the things that could go wrong, and is it even possible to build on this? After that, there's a financial, now that you prove that you have the finance, now you gotta now they lay out the money, back it up with the money. So, and then at the end of the day, there's an overall approval. There's a board that looks at everything and says, okay, this is good to go.
Okay.
And that's when the shovel goes in the ground, and that's when they sign the leasing agreement. We're still very early in the process. We know that Belmont has a lot of issues, infrastructure issues. There's a lot of health questions that are going on in Elmont, such as increase of cancer rates, the quality of water. Belmont has a lot of issues as well, of physical property. And so there's a lot of questions that need to be answered before we get to the point of signing any documents or putting a shovel in the ground.
Okay.
So it's not over. I know many people might think it's over, but it's not. And at the end of the day, the community has a say. And if the community doesn't agree with it, they're going to come out like they did with the soccer stadium and say no. And if they agree with it, they're not going to say no. It's still early in the process. The community is having conversations. And currently, New York Arena Partners actually has changed the plan that they first proposed. And so now we as a community have to talk about that. So it's still pretty early in the process. The environmental study, the environmental traffic studies take about 16 months. Anything can happen in 16 months. New York Arena Partners can, go financially bust. The Islanders can go and leave and go somewhere else. So, there's so many questions, and there's still opportunity to have a conversation. So I tell the community, get engaged, be involved. We have a public hearing. The state is holding a public hearing on March 22nd, and they can come and express all their concerns. And so I've been telling everyone, please go on that date and, say whatever you have to say so it's on the record. Okay.
Thanks. I have no more questions, but once again, thank you.
Anything is possible. Over here. Tell me when you're ready.
Okay. Also wanted to ask you, in terms of gentrification, that's a topic that we speak about a lot in class. Do you think that's something that's possible with the incoming stadium that's to be built, or?
I really truly believe that if and when we implement a full-service train station at Belmont Park, that would really have an effect on the community. I think more people are going to move into the community. Is gentrification? I don't know. I'm not I don't study gentrification, but if development happens, it will affect the community. So it could be a negative effect like gentrification, or it could be a positive effect where stores are booming and there's economic development and more jobs. We don't know, and we have to just see what's the end result of this conversation of redevelopment.
Got it. Thank you.